Have you ever stood in awe of constructions so grandiose they seem to defy logic itself? Monuments built with wealth beyond imagining, structures that challenge time, only to vanish mysteriously or guard secrets that science, even today, struggles vainly to unlock? The Bible and ancient guides speaks of some of the most impressive buildings ever conceived. And locked within each stone, each blueprint, lies a hidden mystery, a lost message, a truth that few dare to truly investigate. In this journey, we'll delve deep into 5 of these incredible biblical constructions and the secrets they keep. But be warned, stay with us, because the final revelation on our list, it will challenge everything you thought you knew. It might just leave you speechless. Are you ready to bridge the gap between faith, history, and archaeology, to explore the mysteries that bind them? Then buckle up, because what you're about to discover could reshape your view of the past, and perhaps the future. Let's get started. Let's begin with perhaps the most famous construction of all. Imagine this, building a ship of truly gigantic proportions. Without modern technology, no cranes lifting heavy timbers, no electric saws slicing through wood, just raw timber, calloused hands, and an unshakable faith. That daunting task fell to one man, Noah. And centuries later, his story continues to baffle scientists, intrigue archaeologists, and inspire those who believe in the seemingly impossible. The Bible tells us in a time when the earth was drowning in corruption and chaos, God chose Noah for a mission that defied all reason: construct a colossal refuge, a vessel to save his family and pairs of every living creature from a world-engulfing flood. Picture the scene. Noah receiving this divine command. He starts felling trees, painstakingly carving joints, meticulously designing compartments. The work was grueling. Decades of relentless construction under a scorching sun. He faced constant mockery, crippling doubt, and the immense weight of being solely responsible for preserving God's creation. But understand, this ark was no simple boat. Its dimensions were astounding. Approximately 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. To put that in perspective, it was nearly the size of a modern cargo ship, all crafted from durable gopher wood, sealed inside and out with pitch to withstand the coming deluge. Now think about it. How could Noah possibly achieve such a monumental feat without advanced tools? How did he manage the logistics of housing and caring for countless animals inside this floating sanctuary? And the biggest question of all, was there truly a flood so vast it could cover mountains? Myth or reality? Science continues to wrestle with these questions. Geologists and historians have uncovered compelling evidence of a massive flood event in ancient Mesopotamia. Studies strongly suggest that thousands of years ago, a catastrophic inundation may have submerged vast regions, potentially seeding the legend of a global flood. But what truly stands out are the tantalizing supposed discoveries of the ark itself. It begins dramatically. In 1959, a Turkish pilot, soaring over the formidable peaks of Mount Ararat, spotted something extraordinary, a distinct boat-like formation. Did this aerial photo capture the impossible? Could this shape etched into the mountainside truly be the final resting place of Noah's legendary vessel, resembling the massive hull of a ship swallowed by time? Since that tantalizing glimpse from the sky, numerous expeditions, fueled by both faith and scientific curiosity, have attempted to confirm if the remains of Noah's Ark are indeed nestled there. Some missions returned with intriguing finds, pieces of what appears to be petrified wood, geological structures strangely consistent with a large, man-made object. Yet the definitive proof remains elusive. The crucial question echoes through the decades. Is it really Noah's Ark? Science continues to debate, demanding more concrete evidence. Meanwhile, for millions, faith remains unwavering, holding on to the possibility of this biblical miracle preserved in stone. Now let's journey from a potential mountaintop discovery to the sun-baked plains of the Jordan Valley. Imagine standing before a city encircled by colossal walls. Walls so thick, so towering, so utterly imposing that they seemed utterly impassable. Jericho, one of humanity's oldest continuously inhabited cities, a fortress built to withstand any conceivable enemy, shielding its people from every external threat. Now try to visualize the unthinkable. These mighty walls don't succumb to battering rams, devastating explosives, or the relentless siege engines of war. No, according to the ancient texts, they crumble, due to something far more enigmatic, almost ethereal, the resonant blast of trumpets and the unified shout of faith. This is the astounding story of Jericho, the stage for one of the most mysterious and fiercely debated events in the entire Bible. An event so extraordinary it continues to defy conventional logic, deeply intriguing scientists and historians alike. But did this really happen? Could sound and faith truly bring down stone? And crucially, what does science have to say about this seemingly miraculous collapse? According to the biblical account, Jericho stood as a formidable, fortified city. Its walls were legendarily high and sturdy. Any direct assault seemed practically suicidal. For the Israelites, fresh from wandering the harsh desert for 40 long years, the conquering of this stronghold appeared an insurmountable challenge. But God, the narrative tells us, had a plan, a strategy that defied all known military tactics. The Israelite army received a peculiar, almost baffling order: march around the city once a day, in complete, eerie silence, for 6 consecutive days. No attacks were launched, no weapons were drawn, just a solemn, silent procession, as if patiently waiting for some invisible signal. Then on the 7th day, the instructions shifted dramatically. 7 circuits around the city walls, priests blowing trumpets, shofars, their piercing calls echoing through the air, and finally a single, unified shout erupting from the throats of the entire assembly. And then, abruptly, inexplicably, the walls simply collapsed, not weakened by siege machines, not shaken down by predictable earthquakes, but seemingly undone by sound and belief. Now stop and truly think. Is that even possible? How could a mere march and the vibration of trumpets fell such resistant fortifications? Throughout the 20th century, archaeologists began digging into the layers of history at Jericho, searching for tangible answers. And that's precisely when the story took an even more fascinating turn. In the 1950s, the renowned British archaeologist Kathleen Kenyon conducted meticulous excavations at the site. She unearthed a shocking discovery. There were indeed the ruins of a massive defensive wall that showed clear signs of having collapsed suddenly. But here's the most surprising part: the detail that baffled investigators. The archaeological evidence strongly suggested that the walls fell outward, cascading down the slope away from the city. This was completely unusual. Typically, when a city is conquered by siege, its walls are breached and tumble inward from external attacks. But the ruins of Jericho hinted at a collapse that seemed to defy the physics of warfare, a collapse that seemed to originate from within the city itself. This startling archaeological observation remarkably coincides with the biblical narrative, the assertion that the walls weren't breached by conventional human forces, but were brought down by something much greater, something divine. But wait, what if there's a more grounded, natural explanation for this dramatic event? Some researchers point to geology. Jericho, after all, is situated directly on a known geological fault line. Tremors and earthquakes are relatively common occurrences in that region. Could a powerful earthquake have been the true culprit behind the wall's collapse? The earthquake theory could make logical sense, were it not for one crucial nagging detail: the timing. How could Joshua and the Israelites possibly have predicted the exact moment an earthquake would strike? And even more perplexingly, how could it have occurred precisely at the climactic moment of the trumpet blasts and the unified war cry? If a random earthquake was solely responsible, then we'd have to accept an almost impossible, statistically staggering synchronicity. Could this be one of those extraordinary cases where science and faith unexpectedly intersect? What if the fall of Jericho was triggered by an event far beyond our current capacity to fully explain? One thing remains undeniable: the story of Jericho and its tumbling walls persists as one of the greatest, most enduring mysteries of biblical archaeology. But prepare yourself, because the next structure we're about to explore is perhaps even more mysterious, more challenging to fully comprehend. Imagine, if you can, a building so magnificent, so breathtakingly grand, that its very walls were said to be lavishly covered in pure gold, reflecting the searing sunlight in a truly celestial glow. A place considered so intensely sacred, it was specifically designed and built to house the very presence of God on earth. This was Solomon's temple, the absolute masterpiece of ancient Israel's sacred architecture, a construction shrouded in layers of deep mystery, profound reverence, and undeniable power. But how was such an unparalleled architectural marvel even erected in the ancient world? What does modern archaeology actually reveal about its tangible existence? And perhaps most importantly, what is the true, enduring spiritual significance of this legendary sanctuary? The story begins not with Solomon, but with his father David, the shepherd boy who became Israel's great warrior king. David's heart burned with an intense desire to build a permanent, glorious house for God. However, divine word decreed this monumental mission would not be his to complete, but would fall to his son and successor, Solomon, destined to be renowned as the wisest king in history. The location chosen for this sacred edifice was no accident. Mount Moriah, a place already steeped in spiritual significance, believed to be a focal point of divine energy and unwavering faith. It was the very same place where, centuries earlier, Abraham had faced his ultimate test of obedience, preparing to sacrifice his beloved son Isaac, a location intrinsically marked by supernatural encounters and profound divine events. But the construction of the temple was destined to be far more than just an impressive engineering feat. It was envisioned as a colossal project where every single detail, every measurement, every material held a specific preordained divine purpose. Consider this. The massive stones used in its foundation and walls were meticulously carved, precisely cut, and fully prepared far away from the actual building site. An impressive, almost unbelievable detail follows. According to the scriptures, no sound of hammers, chisels, or any iron tools was ever heard at the temple site itself during construction, adhering strictly to God's command for reverence. This immediately raises an intriguing, almost baffling question. How was it remotely possible to quarry, transport, and perfectly fit together giant, multi-ton stone blocks, raising a monumental temple structure, all without the audible clamor of construction tools on the sacred site itself? The finest cedars of Lebanon, among the most noble and prized woods of the ancient world, were brought in for this divine project. Hauled from distant lands, their sacred, rich aroma likely filled the air during construction, a scent signifying more than just aesthetics. It was a symbol of royalty, purity, and a profound connection to the divine itself. And then comes the most jaw-dropping detail, the element that truly set Solomon's temple apart. The entire interior was said to be lavishly covered in pure gold. Imagine walls literally glowing with a celestial, otherworldly brilliance. Intricately sculpted cherubim, graceful palm trees, and blooming flowers adorned practically every surface, creating an environment that seemed to transcend earthly reality, offering a glimpse into the heavenly. But the true heart, the absolute epicenter of the temple's sanctity, was an even more sacred, restricted space, the Holy of Holies. Within this hallowed chamber, behind a thick veil, rested the legendary Ark of the Covenant, perhaps the most mysterious and sought-after artifact in all of history, serving as the ultimate symbol of God's tangible, physical presence dwelling among his people. After 7 intense years of dedicated, meticulous work, the temple was finally complete, standing as a beacon of faith and architectural splendor. But what transpired on the day of its grand inauguration was something no one could have possibly predicted, an event that would be recounted for millennia. King Solomon gathered all the tribes of Israel for an unforgettable ceremony before the newly consecrated altar. There, the king offered a powerful, heartfelt prayer, pleading with God to accept this magnificent house as his chosen dwelling place on earth. And then, it happened. Suddenly, dramatically, a glorious cloud, described as the very Shekinah glory of God, descended and completely filled the entire temple. It was a tangible, overwhelming, indescribable presence that left the assembled thousands speechless. What followed moments later was even more awe-inspiring. Fire flashed down from the heavens, striking the altar and instantly consuming the prepared sacrifices before the astonished eyes of the Israelites. It was the definitive, undeniable sign. God had accepted the temple as his earthly sanctuary. The people fell to their knees, overcome with awe, realizing in that profound moment they stood in the very presence of the living, real Creator. But the story of Solomon's temple doesn't simply end with its glorious dedication. It would remain an enduring enigma throughout the centuries. Its profound secrets, its eventual tragic destruction, and the lingering mysteries surrounding its fate and the location of the ark continue to echo powerfully to this very day. And now, get ready. Because the next construction we will explore is, in its own way, even more impressive and profoundly challenging to our understanding. Imagine a primordial world where all of humanity speaks a single, common language. No communication barriers, no cultural borders dividing them. All peoples living in perfect harmony and understanding, united by a single ambitious purpose: to construct a tower so immense, so high, that its pinnacle would literally reach the heavens themselves. But this towering ambition, born of human pride rather than divine guidance, instead of drawing humanity closer to God, allegedly stirred his divine wrath. And then, according to the ancient text, something truly unbelievable occurred. In an instant, coherent communication was irreversibly shattered. Languages fractured, understanding dissolved into confusion, and the great construction project ground to a halt, abandoned forever amidst the chaos. But what really was the legendary Tower of Babel? Did such a structure truly exist? What does archaeology potentially reveal about this ancient story of hubris and division? And more importantly, what profound, timeless lesson does this unfinished monument teach us even today? The book of Genesis tells us that after the great flood washed the world clean, the descendants of Noah began to multiply, spread throughout the land, and repopulate the earth. For a crucial period, they remained remarkably united, sharing not just common ancestry, but a single spoken language. This linguistic unity granted them an extraordinary, unprecedented power: the ability to cooperate seamlessly, to organize vast projects without limits, to advance technologically and culturally as a unified force, capable of achieving almost anything they imagined, without the obstacles of misunderstanding or cultural division. At some pivotal point, these unified people decided to settle permanently in the fertile plain of Shinar, an area we now recognize as ancient Mesopotamia. But mere settlement wasn't enough for their burgeoning ambition. They yearned to leave an indelible mark, a testament to their own power and ingenuity. Employing surprisingly innovative technology for the era, durable bricks fired in kilns, not just sun-dried, and using sticky bitumen as mortar, they commenced the construction of a truly monumental structure, a tower so vast, so audacious, that it was intended to become the ultimate symbol of human self-sufficiency and renown. Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. Genesis 11:4 records their proclamation. Their goal was explicit: reach the heavens, yes, but perhaps more profoundly, they sought to challenge the divine order, to secure their own legacy independent of God. The construction progressed relentlessly. The tower rose higher and higher, piercing the Mesopotamian sky. The collective power of humankind seemed absolutely limitless, their unified will bending reality itself. But then, according to the narrative, God himself intervened. Observing their work and perceiving its underlying prideful motivation, he made a radical, world-altering decision: to confuse the single language of humanity, ensuring they could no longer understand one another's speech. Now try to truly imagine the sudden, utter chaos erupting on that massive construction site. A mason urgently calls for more bricks, but his bewildered colleague hears it as a request for water. The chief architect attempts to shout crucial orders, but his words dissolve into meaningless babble amidst the cacophony. What was, mere moments before, a perfectly synchronized, unified project instantly descends into absolute bedlam. The once orderly construction site transforms into sheer pandemonium. The empire of perfect communication was shattered, fragmented beyond repair. Men and women, once collaborators, could no longer comprehend each other. Without coordination, without shared understanding, the Great Tower project inevitably faltered and was ultimately abandoned. Its builders, now divided by language and misunderstanding, dispersed, scattering across the face of the earth, eventually forming the diverse tapestry of nations, cultures, and languages we recognize today. But the persistent question echoes through history. Did this extraordinary event really happen? For many scholars and archaeologists, the biblical story of Babel finds intriguing parallels in the historical structures of Mesopotamia, specifically the ziggurats, massive stepped pyramid-like temples common in the region. The most famous of these was the colossal Etemenanki, a towering temple built in ancient Babylon, dedicated to the god Marduk. Historical records and inscriptions refer to the Etemenanki with titles like the House of the Foundation of Heaven and Earth, or Temple whose top rivals the heavens, names that bear a strange and compelling resemblance to the stated purpose of the Tower of Babel described in the Bible. Over turbulent centuries, the Etemenanki was repeatedly destroyed and rebuilt before finally falling into ruin and being permanently abandoned. Could this have been the original structure, the very tower mentioned in the scriptures? While there's no definitive smoking gun proof, the parallels between the archaeological findings and the biblical descriptions are undeniably striking and thought-provoking. Yet perhaps more important than its literal historicity, the story of the Tower of Babel resonates as a timeless allegory, a potent warning about the potential dangers of unchecked human ambition. How far should human aspiration reach? Could our relentless pursuit of power, greatness, and self-sufficiency lead us to challenge forces and boundaries far beyond our true understanding or control? And now prepare yourself once more, because the final construction we're going to explore emerges from a very different context, holding secrets not of ambition, but potentially of healing. Imagine the crushing weight of exile, your people torn violently from their homeland, forcibly marched to a foreign nation. Imagine watching helplessly as your most sacred site, the magnificent temple that represented the very heart of your faith, is utterly destroyed, reduced to smoke and rubble. For many, such devastation would signify the absolute end, a severing of their connection with God. But not for the Jewish people. When they were finally permitted to return from 70 long years of Babylonian captivity, they carried back more than just their remaining possessions. They brought with them a burning dream to rebuild the temple, to restore their covenant, to reclaim their identity. The Second Temple of Jerusalem wasn't just another building project. It was destined to become a powerful symbol of national rebirth, unwavering hope, and the enduring spirit of an entire nation. But how was this second grand construction achieved after such loss? What made it distinct and special? And ultimately, why was its fate also sealed with destruction, ending in such a tragic and brutal way? The story begins with an unexpected decree. After decades of exile, the Persian king Cyrus the Great not only granted the Jews permission to return to their ravaged homeland, but actually ordered the rebuilding of their temple, even helping to finance the monumental undertaking. Yet as the returned exiles began the arduous work, they faced a stark and somewhat disheartening reality. This new temple would not possess the unparalleled splendor of Solomon's original masterpiece. It was visibly smaller, significantly less luxurious. Crucially, it lacked the most sacred object, the Ark of the Covenant, and its walls wouldn't shimmer with the same breathtaking expanse of pure gold. The elders, those who could still vividly remember the glory of the first temple, reportedly wept, sadness filling their eyes. In comparison, this new structure seemed almost pale, a shadow of its former magnificence. But then, amidst the rebuilding and mixed emotions, something unexpected occurred. The prophet Haggai delivered a surprising and potent message from God. The glory of this latter house shall be greater than of the former. Haggai 2:9. Greater glory? How could this possibly be? How could a seemingly inferior temple surpass the legendary sanctuary built by Solomon? Centuries rolled by. Then Herod the Great, an ambitious, often ruthless king obsessed with grand architectural statements, decided to massively expand and embellish the Second Temple. What had begun as a more modest structure was transformed under Herod into one of the acknowledged wonders of the ancient world. The Temple Mount platform, the courtyard area, was effectively doubled in size, creating a vast, sprawling religious complex designed to inspire awe. Monumental colonnades and enormous, elaborate walkways were constructed, stunning any visitor who approached. Key parts of the temple facade were coated with brilliant white marble and dazzling gold, causing the entire structure to shine magnificently under the bright Jerusalem sun. The result? A building so splendid, so imposing, that it left pilgrims utterly speechbound. The temple once again became the vibrant, beating heart of Judaism. Throngs of worshippers gathered daily within its courts to pray, offer sacrifices, and seek the tangible presence of God. It was within this very temple complex that Jesus of Nazareth famously taught, confronted the money changers, and delivered a shocking, prophetic declaration concerning the magnificent stones surrounding them. Do you see all these things? Truly I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down. Matthew 24:2. It was a prophecy that would later be devastatingly fulfilled. In 70 AD, tensions boiled over. The mighty Roman Empire laid siege to Jerusalem in a brutal response to the first Jewish revolt against Roman rule. After months of intense, bloody fighting, the Roman legions breached the city walls and, in a final, fiery act of conquest, set the temple ablaze. Historical accounts like those of Josephus vividly describe how the intense heat caused the temple's vast quantities of gold to melt, the molten rivers of precious metal dripping down between the massive stones, inadvertently sealing their fate and tempting the victorious Roman soldiers to tear the temple apart stone by stone. Driven by the lure of recovering every last ounce of melted gold fused within the smoldering ruins, the legionaries undertook a methodical, utter dismantling of the sacred structure. Just as Jesus had prophesied, stone was pried from stone, foundation blocks were overturned. When the devastating work was finally complete, nothing substantial remained of Herod's magnificent temple complex, but scorched earth and scattered ruins. Miraculously, one significant section of the outer retaining wall endured the destruction, what we know today as the Western Wall, or the Kotel. It stands as one of the last poignant, tangible remnants of the temple's former grandeur. Yet it is simultaneously a stark, enduring reminder of the profound pain of loss, the destruction of a nation's heart, and the scattering of its people, a place of deep prayer and lamentation even now. But the story of the temple, remarkably, doesn't truly end there, amidst the ashes and sorrow. For centuries, the physical temple had served as the designated place of God's tangible presence on earth, the central location where sacrifices were offered for atonement, and where the faithful sought forgiveness and divine guidance. However, something radically changed with the arrival of Jesus. He brought a truly revolutionary message, one that shifted the very foundation of worship. Standing within the courts of that same doomed temple, he made a cryptic yet profoundly significant declaration: "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it again in 3 days." John 2:19. The religious leaders were baffled, outraged even, thinking he spoke of the literal stone and mortar surrounding them. But Jesus wasn't merely talking about architecture, about physical walls and golden decorations. He was speaking prophetically about himself, about his own body, his impending death, and his resurrection. The true ultimate temple, he implied, would no longer be confined to a single building, a specific geographical location. Through his sacrifice and resurrection, God's presence would become accessible in a new, more intimate way. God would come to dwell not in structures made by human hands, but directly within the hearts of those who believe. Now pause and think deeply about this profound shift. If the ultimate intention is for God to dwell within you, is your life, your inner self, prepared to be that sacred space? Are you building a temple within, ready to receive his presence? Let this powerful reflection resonate with you long after this video ends. Thank you sincerely for journeying with us this far through these incredible biblical constructions and their enduring mysteries. May God richly bless you. We hope to see you again very soon for more explorations into the depths of Scripture and history.